What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and this is going to be a pretty fun one because it's featuring a deck that is a bit jank for the format, but it is a blast when it actually does go off, and that is Levia Dragon Daedalus. Now, Levia Dragon Daedalus was sort of a jank monster released in Invasion of Chaos that kind of gets overshadowed by the more typical Chaos monsters, and for good reason. It's got a very bombastic effect, but doesn't quite end the game immediately, and at only 2600 attack and having no way to special summon it out with its own effect, it's less good of a boss monster than Black Letter Soldier Envoy of the beginning or Chaos Ember Dragon Envoy of the end. That being said, it still is very fun when you actually get to pull off its effect, and also it's not necessarily as hard to pull off as people may think, as there are a couple tools that can actually get this thing out on the field and use its effect more quickly. So let's go through the card by card for this deck. This is just my take on the deck. There are many different ways to build this sort of deck. And honestly, this deck I personally don't think is really that good. So, you could tend to prioritize other things, maybe not play as many Legendary Oceans or Levia Dragon Daedaluses, but I wanted to play as many as possible just to sort of pull off the combo as much as possible and, sort of show this deck for this combo alone. So that's why I built the deck the way I did, and it's definitely not perfect by any means, but, I just wanted to get the combo off as much as possible. So to start off with, we've got 3 Levia Dragon Daedalus. Now, this is a level 7 water monster, 2600 attack, 1500 defense. Says you can send one face-up Umi you control to the graveyard, destroy other cards on the field. And lucky for us, a Legendary Ocean is a field spell that is always treated as Umi. So this card says, all water monsters on the field gain 200 attack and defense. Reduce the level of all water monsters in both players' hands and on the field by 1. So this makes Levia Dragon Daedalus a level 6 monster, which means that you can bring it out with just 1 tribute as opposed to 2. So it's not that much of a brick when you get it to hand and you have a Legendary Ocean. All you need is 1 monster on your side of the field to actually tribute off for it, and even if you don't have one of your own, you can use Change of Heart or Snatch Steal to take one of your opponents and tribute it off for the Daedalus. So it's a pretty decent card, all things considered, but in the face of things like BLS and CED, it's kind of underpowered, and we are indeed actually playing BLS and CED to sort of act as a follow-up to Levia Dragon Daedalus. So the idea is we bring out Daedalus, send Legendary Ocean, wipe the whole board away, and then we follow that up with a Chaos Monster, and that should hopefully allow us to win the game, as we'll be getting in a lot of damage. In CED's case, it probably is just enough to win the game, because we can then use CED's effect to just, destroy the whole field in hands, and then deal the damage to your opponent. So, that's kind of our finisher, because otherwise we just have a 2600 attack point monster that is kind of unprotected on the field, and our opponent could just bring out a Chaos Monster of their own and win through that way. So because we are playing the Chaos Monsters, we do need to be playing some lights and darks. So for our darks, we're playing Kek the Ghost Destroyer, we're playing Magical Scientist, which is a card that I'm not the biggest fan of in a general deck in this format, and I think there are better cards, but I think there are some specific applications for this card in this format that actually makes it pretty good, or not in this format, but in this deck, and I'll get into those later when I talk about another way that we're bringing out Daedalus to field. But, also this can be used just to bring out a tribute monster, because you can bring out a fusion monster with it, like Thousand Hydro Trick, suck up an opponent's monster, tribute over that for Daedalus if a Legendary Ocean's on the field. So it's kind of good in that regard as well. We've also got Sangan and Witch to search out almost every card in our deck. Sangan doesn't really have too many targets besides Witch and Scientist, so it's a bit worse than Witch in this deck, but it is a dark that replaces itself, so that's why we are playing it. For our lights, we're playing Triple Sacred Crane, and this goes with the other way to get out Daedalus from our deck, which is Reasoning. And that's also why we have Scientist here. Level 1 is a target that is probably not going to be called out on Reasoning all that often. So, if we do hit Scientist off Reasoning, that can be pretty good. But Sacred Crane is a light monster, 1600 attack that says, if this card is special summon, draw 1 card. So, if people get wise to the strategy of Daedalus being in the deck and they start calling 7, and you hit a Sacred Crane, you get to draw off this, which is pretty nice. Lastly, for the monsters, we've got Tribe Infecting Virus. It's a water. It's a great way to clear the board if you don't have Daedalus. And it's also a great way to get Daedalus in graveyard if you've got some form of revival like Monster Reborn. Or just get, Darks and Lights in grave for your Chaos monsters. So, very, very good card here. Now, moving on to the spells, we've got Triple Legendary Ocean, which counts as Umi, so this pairs with Daedalus. We're actually not playing Terraforming. Terraforming is a card you could play with this, but I prefer just going 3 Legendary Oceans over, 2 Legendary Oceans and Terraforming, and I don't really think this deck has the space to include, too many Terraformings, although there is sort of one package that you could potentially replace with this, But I do like just having legendary oceans here as opposed to just, 2 into terraforming, because we got 3 Daedalus, so it makes sense to have 3 legendary ocean as well. We've also got a card destruction to cycle through the deck a bit quicker. If we've already got legendary oceans in hand and we got multiple copies of it, we can commit 1 to board, then card destruction the other way to draw into your other stuff. You can also card destruction some Daedaluses away as well. We've got Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Graceful Charity, Mirage of Nightmare, Monster Reborn, triple MST for our Mirage, Pot of Greed, Raigeki, triple Reasoning. As I mentioned, this can be good at bringing out Daedalus, especially because a lot of the time people are just going to be calling 8 by instinct because, DMOC is in the format. We're actually not playing DMOC in the main deck because, people are just going to be calling 8 in game 1. After they sort of see that you're on the Daedalus stuff, they might switch up their strategy, in which case you can bring in the Dark Magician of Chaos to sort of act as a surprise bomb in the deck. But that's why we're not playing in the main. And lastly, we've got the Snatch Deal, which does pair well with the Daedalus if a Legendary Ocean's already on field. For the traps, we've got Imperial Order, Triple Jar of Greed. I figure in a combo deck like this, you want to be going through your deck as quickly as possible. And also, this is just easily usable back row that can act as a bluff. And also, you can clear your own back row before you actually go for the Daedalus play. So I like Jar of Greed in this deck. We've got a Mirror Force, a Ring of Destruction, and then Triple Torrential Tribute. We're kind of just trying to clear away our opponent's board as much as possible. And since we're clearing our own board and we don't really have the most monsters, I think that Torrential Tribute is a pretty good option here. Now for the side deck isn't really the most refined thing in the world. Honestly, it has just a lot of ideas that I was also considering. Like, for instance, I've got Terraforming in here to like test out whether I want to bring those in or not. I've got the DMOC here, as I mentioned, to bring in after your opponent knows you're on Daedalus. Fiber Jar and also Yata. These are kind of like, Yata's another finisher in addition to Daedalus. Because you Daedalus the board and then you summon out Yata and attack in. But it's kind of like the Chaos Yata Lock in a way, because you'll likely have already normal summoned with Daedalus, so you're not really the most likely to pull off Yata, but it is here as an option, so it's something that I sort of had here to experiment with. We've also got Lily for a similar reason. We've got double Kaiku as well, just in case we need more darks, in case we are up against a Chaos Turbo sort of deck. This card can be good to bring into. For the hand rips, we've got Confiscation, Duo, and Forceful. These can be good to bring in if you're going first. But, I feel like a deck like this doesn't really care as much about what's in the hand. It really just wants to sort of push for damage and win through the Daedalus line. But we've also got a Harpy Feather Duster for more back row heavy decks. And then we've got Premature Burial and Call of the Haunted. Now, I don't initially have these in the deck because I feel like with Daedalus, they're kind of a non-bow. Because the idea would be with these, in most reasoning decks that you play with big monsters, you play Premature Burial and Call of the Haunted so that way you can bring back your big monster after it gets hit by your opponent calling the correct level. The issue here is if you Premature Burial or Call the Haunted back the Daedalus and then use Daedalus to send the Legendary Ocean, then it will indeed destroy the Call of the Haunted or the Premature Burial, which will then destroy the Daedalus as well. So it's kind of an awkward combo there. These can be good to bring in if you are bringing in the Dark Magician of Chaos, as they pair very well with that. But, with Daedalus, they're a bit less good. Now, of course, converting like Call of the Haunted or a Premature Burial into a board wipe, essentially, is a good thing. But it is a little bit awkward, as then you need the follow-up. So then you would need something like the Yata, like the Chaos Monsters, to then push for a lot of damage. So I'm not the hugest fan of these in the main, but I do have them on the side to test out. And of course, for the Fusion deck, we've sort of got a Scientist toolbox here. We got the Dark Balters for, effect negation. We've got Dark Flare Knight for the highest attack. We've got Dark Fire Dragon and Flame Ghost for just level stuff, really. And they're also darks, which is kind of nice. We've got Guilty of the D-Knight for a light. We've got Fiend Skull Dragon for targeted trap negation, as well as just negating flip monsters as well. We've got Reaper on the Nightmare. Probably will never come up since we're bringing it out of Scientist, but you never know. We got Roaring Ocean Snake, which actually goes up to 2,300 over the 2,200 Dark Flare Knight under Legendary Ocean. We've got Ryu Sentry to negate traps. We've got Super Robo Lady and Super Robo Yard just for edge cases here. These will realistically never come up because you've got Dark Flare Knight, but they are kind of interesting to look at. We got Last Warrior from Another Planet. Again, likely will never come up because Scientist, but might as well include it here. And also we got Double Thousand Eyes Restrict as well, which is a very common card that you'll go into off Scientist, acts as removal, and can be very good. Now, again, in Chaos format, you do have an unlimited fusion deck, so, if you're missing any one fusion monster that's out at this time that you might want, you can sort of like proxy it in, but that will very rarely ever come up when you have a fusion deck filled with this many cards. So, with that out of the way, that's the deck breakdown. I think this deck is really, really cool. I don't think it's the best by any means. I think the Daedalus combo is funny if it goes off, but it doesn't really actually win you the game on the spot, which is why we sort of have to resort to the Chaos Monsters here. But, if I pull off the Daedalus combo, I'll be happy. So let's just dive into the games and see if I can do that. Okay, we got a game against Dump Truck, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We are going to go into rock, paper, scissors. Pretty intense. We tied twice, but luckily we do indeed win the rock, paper, scissors there. Throwing paper over that rock there. And we're going to dive into the game. This is a very good opening hand. Just a really, really good opening hand. We're just going to set the Sangan, set Jar of Greed, set Torrential Tribute, pass. Torrential Tribute is really good with Sangan because if they summon a monster, we can TT, trigger the Sangan, get a search, and Jar of Greed is if they've got like a Harpy's Feather Duster or something. This is a little bit weak to hand rips, but like you kind of got to play around Harpy's Feather Duster or hand rips. You can't play around both. So they've got a hand rip, they've got a tough choice between Ring and Mirror Force, so it's not the worst. They've got Duo, and this is honestly not that bad for us because, if they hit a trap, we can just discard Crane. If they hit Crane, then we have our choice of trap to discard there. We could have also fired Jar of Greed just to draw another card and have a thicker hand, make it less likely that they'd hit something that we want them not to hit. But I feel like that's a bit rough if you don't actually know what you're drawing, and you could potentially just draw something even worse to pitch that they hit. So I don't fire the Jar there. I feel like Jar is more valuable as like spell and trap bait, but they're going to go for Painful here, sending a variety of cards here. We just give them the Serpent. They do have a Light and Dark and Grave, which is unfortunate. If they like bring out BLS, Prio, banish the Sangan, that's rough. But we've got this Torrential Tribute to clear that. We've got Ring in hand to clear whatever else they have. And we also have this Jar of Greed here to draw into more stuff if we don't have a way to follow up after that. So I feel fine just giving them the Serpent. It would be awkward, sure, but I think that is ultimately the best choice. They're going to go for Warrior Lady. We've got this Torrential Tribute here, so we will get a search off that. Unfortunately, now if they bring in a Chaos Monster, they can get in for some major damage, which is kind of unfortunate. But realistically, this would have happened like either way. Like if we had given them the Sangan or the Warrior, I mean, I guess we had given them the Sangan, then they like could have summoned it out, just hit over our Sangan. We wouldn't have like Torrential that. But I feel like that's like, sort of wasting a Torrential Tribute here, so I don't know. I think it's fine. They're going to go for MST. We've got this Jar of Greed. We will just draw off that. Now, if we had the read that they are on CED, we could have potentially not drawn off this to save a little bit of life points. But it looks like they are indeed on the CED. So, they are just going to attack in, and we'll take it. And unfortunately, we'll lose a lot of cards here. But I still think that drawing off the Jar is still ultimately good because you're seeing more of your deck. And, for instance, if we drew into, like, a Daedalus, then, we would pitch that, get it engraved, so if we draw Monster Reborn later, that would be pretty good. Although, realistically, if we went for Monster Reborn later, we probably would want to, like, get back the CED, but either way, it's ultimately fine. We've got Reasoning here. We're just going to fire that. And they're going to call 8, which, again, people always just call 8 to start. We had a Sacred Crane, which is very nice. So we'll get to draw off that. We draw Charity. We could have saved the Charity. I think in hindsight, maybe I should have saved the Charity. But again, I want to see as much of my deck right now as possible because we do need to get aggressive. We know about the Serpent there. So we just want to like filter through as much of our deck as possible at this point. And we're not playing Serpent. Serpent is kind of a terrible card to hit off Reasoning. So that's why I'm not really playing it. But, maybe I should just be playing it for situations like this, as that would have been a much better search off Sangan. But we're just going to go for Graceful here. And, oof, we hit some tough choices. We're definitely pitching Daedalus no matter what. But Torrential Tribute and Change of Heart are a bit tough here. I feel like actually we want to keep the Torrential in hand in case they get a more powerful monster. Like, if they summon a Kaiku, that's pretty bad for us, as it kind of shuts off our Chaos monsters. And Change of Heart is like temporary. Sure, we can use Change of Heart to potentially pull off a big push later, but I feel like it's more valuable for protection right now. So we're going to think about this, and then we're going to pitch the Daedalus and pitch Change of Heart. Now, there was also an argument here to potentially save the Change of Heart for until I drew like a Daedalus, because then I have an easy discard fodder already in hand. But I think, I think it's just good to see as much of your deck as possible in a very low resource situation like this. So we're going to set this Torrential Tribute, pass back to them. They're going to add back the Serpent to hand, and they're going to set 2. We know that's the Serpent, so nice to at least know it. We're going to attack in to their set. It is indeed the Serpent. We're going to set a Jar of Greed, pass back to them. They're going to add that Serpent back to hand there. And they're going to set another, pass back to us. We draw a Chaos Emperor Dragon, which we do indeed have a Light and Dark for. So that's pretty good. We are going to think about this a bit. And we are just going to fire the Jar of Greed here, as I want to, if I can draw ways to sort of insulate the Chaos Emperor Dragon play, that would be pretty good. And I do think that we should probably go for the Chaos Emperor Dragon here. The real punish to this is if they have Mirror Force. But if they got Mirror Force, they got Mirror Force. We're probably losing either way if they've got that. So I feel that is ultimately fine. We draw Daedalus, which is quite unfortunate. But it is what it is. We're just going to banish the Light and Dark, go for Chaos Emperor Dragon. We're not going to use priority because we actually win the game if they don't have a way to stop this, and we attack him with Crane, then attack him with CED, then use CED's effect. So we feel very good about this. We're going to attack him with the Crane, that will go through, so I'm very happy about that. It means they don't have Mirror Force. And then they fire a Call of the Haunted here, bringing out CED. Kind of unfortunate. We could potentially just, go to main 2, use CED's effect, wipe the whole board. But that's really bad for us, actually, because they'll have a Serpent, we won't. They'll also have the initiative, so if they've got a way to get in for like 2200 damage, then we basically lose the game. So what we're going to do here instead, we're just going to crash our CED into their CED, and then just pass back to them. Kind of an unfortunate situation, but we still got our Crane set up, and, at least it, got rid of the Call of the Haunted there, because Call of the Haunted would have basically ended the game if they had brought back CED, used the effect, so, yeah, it would have been really bad for us. So they're going to go for Pot of Greed here, draw 2, fire MST on our set, quite unfortunate, bring out Kaiku, and yeah, that's really rough. We'll take 200. They'll banish the Witch and the CED, pass back to us. We draw Mirage of Nightmare, so that's something at least. If they don't have another monster here, then at least we get to draw some stuff. So we'll draw 3. And that's honestly a decent follow-up here, although, we don't have like an MST to clear the Mirage, but I feel okay about this. But they do bring out a DD Worthy, so they do indeed have lethal here. So that will be the end of the game 1. We didn't really get to see the Levia Daedalus stuff happen. Like, we never saw Legendary Ocean, for instance. And Daedalus was basically just tribute fodder, or not tribute fodder, but discard fodder for Graceful. But, that happens sometimes when you've got 2 parts of the deck that, are kind of just doing their own thing, right? Like, you can search Daedalus with Witch, which is something at least, but you can't search Legendary Ocean. We could have used Terraformings for that, but again, I don't really think that you have enough deck space to actually play Terraforming. But we're going to be going first here, and this is a pretty decent opener hand. We're going to bring out Crane, set 2, and then just fire Card Destruction. Just sort of dig deeper into our deck. We have an MSC for, if they've got a way like Mirage, or they've got like IO or something like that. But I just want to draw deeper into their deck. I don't want to let them commit any powerful cards to field yet. So I'm just going to go for Card Destruction right away. And I'm very happy about that because we actually do hit a Thunder Dragon, which basically makes the other Thunder Dragons in their deck pretty dead. As I've played more and more of Chaos, I've sort of moved away from Thunder Dragon. I don't really think Thunder Dragon is the best in a typical Chaos list. Just because, like, there are so many situations where it can end up bad for you. This is, of course, an edge case where it's ending up a bit worse for you. But I think ultimately, like, Shining Angel or like Magician of Faith is a better card. But we also hit Raigeki, Reborn, and Snatch Steal, all very powerful cards. So I'm very happy that we hit all those. We do unfortunately set up Chaos Monsters for them, which is quite rough. But I think ultimately, that's fine. I think we hit enough power cards to make that worth it. And we do have the TT here to protect ourselves from a Chaos Monster on their end. So they are going to go for another Thunder Dragon. Oh, they drew the other one, but they can only get one monster here. So it's basically just deck thinning a little bit. They are indeed going to just set one, go for a CED here. And they are indeed going to use Prio. Now, we're going to use Strength's Tribute and to chain it, just to have less cards on field to actually burn us for less. And then we're also actually going to chain an MST to the Torrential to get that off the field as well. So this is just sort of, damage control. So now we only have 4 cards on our side of the field. They've got 4 cards in hand. So we'll be taking 2,400 here. And they will get a Search off the Witch. 2,100. I think that was actually a miscalculation. I think I actually should have taken 24. Yeah, because the Crane was also on field. Oh, no, the Crane was not on field. So, yeah. So, yeah, this was only 3 on my part. Yeah, that is correct. So, yeah, 2,100 is the correct number. And they're going to search out a Sangan there off the Witch because they already have the Serpent Engrave. We draw Kaiku, which is about the best draw we could have drawn there. We're going to bring that out, attack in for 1800, deal that, and then we're going to banish the Serpent, banish the CD, and pass back to them. They are going to set one, pass back to us. We draw a Mirror Force here. We're going to set the Mirror Force, attack into the Sangan, and they're going to search out a Warrior Lady, which is really rough for us. They're going to pass back, or we're going to pass back to them, that is. And they're going to bring out a Warrior Lady here. And this is a bit worrying for me because it indicates to me that they might have a way to deal with Kaiku. But they're just going to set one, pass back to us. That's a little bit awkward. But yeah, I'm kind of weirded out by that play. So what I'm actually going to do here, and this is a little bit weird, but I'm going to actually attack in with Kaiku here into the Warrior Lady. Because I figure the only reason they go for this play is if they get like a Mirror Force set. And if they get Mirror Force, what we do is we then bring out BLS in main phase 2, banishing the Kaiku and our Sacred Crane, and banish the Warrior Lady that way. So I figure we get good value off that. If they don't have Mirror Force and they just let this attack go through, then we can banish like both Thunder Dragons from grave, or just both like the Sangan and Witch. We can banish both their darks or their lights and deprive them of chaos typing that way. So I feel like this is ultimately the correct move to attack with Kaiku. It's a bit awkward if they banish it because then we won't have dark typing engrave. But I feel like this is still the correct play based on what they're sort of telegraphing. But it's not a Mirror Force, so that will indeed get banished there. We just banish the dark monsters in case they choose to let the Warrior Lady go to grave there. So yeah, I feel like that's ultimately the correct play, but we'll see what they do here. They're going to bring out a Kaiku of their own, and that's really rough because, you know, now they've got a dark monster in grave. So maybe I should have banished the light monsters. The light monsters are a bit harder to come by there. But yeah, I think it's ultimately fine just banishing the darks. But oh, we draw the other chaos monsters, so we don't have a light and dark engrave of our own. So that's going to be just kind of rough there. Staring at these very powerful cards in hand, Kaiku's going to come down, make it even harder for us to actually pull off that chaos play there. So that's really rough. We draw Snap Steel, which is something. We got to fire that. Attack in for 18. That will indeed go through. So we get to banish a Dark and a Light, the Kaiku, and the Thunder Dragon. Maybe I should just banish both Thunder Dragons. But I feel like this is ultimately fine. They are going to fire an MSD on our Snatch, which is quite unfortunate. Attack in directly for 18. We will take that. And they're going to banish the Tribe, the last monster in grave. We draw Jar of Greed. Not quite enough. If they don't draw another monster, then we're okay. But yeah, this is going to be really bad. We go down to 500, and they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Magical Signs, but not quite that useful right now. We're going to go for Jar of Greed here, draw into a Sangan. We're just going to set the Sangan. This will allow us to search out Witch, the last target remaining in deck. They're going to go for Pot of Greed here, draw 2, and they're going to fire Forceful, send back the Scientist. Won't really matter here. I mean, we could search it out of Sangan if we wanted to, but yeah, they're going to bring out a Faith, go for the Torrential here, and that'll be a Light and Dark Engrave. No matter what we had done, they would have gotten a Light or Dark Engrave there with that play. So yeah, they're going to banish 2, bring out BLS, and that will indeed be the end of the game. So kind of rough match for us. I think like both games, we were like surprisingly in it for a lot of it, but yeah, it just did not work out for the best. And unfortunately, we didn't get to show off the Levia Daedalus stuff. Kind of rough. But this wasn't the only game I got with the deck, so let's dive into that now. And hopefully we can actually pull off the combo. Okay, we got a game against Boy here. We did indeed lose the rock, paper, scissors, so we will be going second here. Quite unfortunate. But, you know, we can... Our deck's kind of like a going second deck, so, like, it's not the worst thing in the world for us to go second. It's just that they could get off a hand rip like that, and that'd be kind of rough for us. They're going to go for a Forceful Sentry here. And they're going to send back the Tribe Infecting Virus. That's kind of interesting. It sort of telegraphs that they might have like a big boss monster that they're trying to send out. But yeah, kind of rough. We misclick here. We do Kaiku, but we basically say it's like a misclick right away. We put it back on top of the deck, just draw it. Because I misclicked the hand, the add back to hand thing as well. So, yeah. So it is what it is. Misclicks do happen. But we're going to go for the screen here. Attack in to their Grizzly. And they're going to bring out a Serpent. So that's going to be kind of rough. They're going to be able to get continual value off that. So we're just going to set this Change of Heart and an Imperial Order here. Pass back to them. They've got an Amphibious Buggeroth MK3 here. They're going to go for the Legendary Ocean here. And instead of attacking into our crane, they're actually going to attack directly for 1700 using Amphibious Bugroth MK3's effect. Very, very cool effect here. And also very cool to see that they're on a Legendary Ocean deck as well. So it looks like we got a pseudo mirror match here. Our opponent's also going to bring out a Mother Grizzly here, which will buff stuff up to 1600. They're going to attack into the crane, do a major push this way. We're just going to fire IO here to shut off the Legendary Ocean. So that way, they will lose the Grizzly. They'll be able to bring out another monster, sure. But I still feel like this is ultimately okay, because now we can get over the Bugroth next turn and be ultimately fine. So we're going to pay 7 to keep the IO up on field because I feel like we're in a good position. And then in order to dodge around Mirror Force or Torrential Tribute or something, we're going to just attack into the Bugroth first. Unfortunately, they've got Gravity Bind, so it seems like they're on a bit of a stall burn deck because basically they're using Bugroth as burn with the Gravity Bind and ALO. So, they are going to just pass back to us, and we draw Reasoning, which is pretty decent. We could potentially go for a Reasoning, deck then a little bit, potentially get out Levia. The reason we don't do this is because Levia can actually not send your opponent a Legendary Ocean. It can only send your own a Legendary Ocean. So, yeah, it's just kind of rough. We set a Sacred Crane because honestly, we're okay if this winds up in Grave, if they've got TT or something to board clear us eventually. And if not, we're also okay. We have to think here because we could just let the Imperial Order go, then fire Dark-Hole on the board, clear up the entire thing, and we are indeed just going to do that. So we're going to fire Dark-Hole here, clear away the entire board, and then for our search, we're actually going to search out Tribe. This may be a little bit greedy on my part because it's a little bit fragile, but I want to get in for some damage, want to just have an annoying monster on field to, basically threaten our opponent. And if they manage to clear the Tribe, we've got Reasoning to potentially bring out another monster from deck later. So I think it's ultimately fine. They're going to go for Graceful here, which is kind of rough. And they're going to pitch a Tribe and an MST. Tribe is actually a very interesting pitch, but Tribe can't clear our own Tribe without destroying itself because you'd have to clear Aqua, and that would destroy both the tribes. So they're going to bring out this Bugroth here, attack indirectly for 1700. We're going to let that go through. And then main phase 2, they've got the Raigeki to clear the tribe. So kind of rough. We draw card destruction here, and we're just going to fire it because Reasoning is a bit of a random chance, and we just want to draw deeper into our deck. We draw a Legendary Ocean of our own. Now, Bugroth is actually fine with either player having an Umi, so we can't activate our own Umi to destroy theirs and then stop the Bugroth from attacking in. It will still be active. We also can't set the Umi to destroy their field spell. At this point in time, you can't have 2 field spells on field, but you can indeed set one, and that won't destroy your opponents. So it's just kind of awkward there. We could potentially Change of Heart their Bugroth, get in for 17 just to get damage in. We're just going to set this ring, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to go for a Terraforming, adding another Legendary Ocean to hand here. Kind of rough for us. They're going to attack in with the Bugroth. We're just going to Ring of Destruction that, deal 1700 to them. And they're just going to set to pass back to us. We draw MST, which is pretty decent. We could potentially MST their Legendary Ocean here, for instance. And so what we do is we go for Change of Heart on their set. They fire IO, and I figure the reason why they probably set and are now going for IO here is because they're playing Magician of Faith. It makes sense if you're playing a Legendary Ocean, you want to get a Legendary Ocean back. And Magician of Faith can get them back like Graceful Charity, Raigeki, etc. So I figure having the read that's Magician of Faith, I want the Change of Heart to definitely go through. So that way I get to use it. So I'm going to think about this, and I am indeed just going to MST that Imperial Order there to take control of their monster. Unfortunately, I get a bit played. It's a Gagagio. And yeah, so I just attack in for 2050, but this will just be the end of the game. I don't even have a thing to set as a bluff because they'll know it's a field spell. But yeah, if I had sort of had the read that they weren't on Magician of Faith here, I could just let the Change of Heart go, and then set an MSC. They would have had to either pay for Imperial Order, continuing to negate their Legendary Ocean, and preventing their Gagagigo from attacking, or they would have let the IO go, gone to battle phase, and then we could have actually MST'd the Legendary Ocean to keep them locked under the Gravity Bind there. And we do know about the Legendary Ocean being the last card in hand, so that would have bought us a little bit more time. But unfortunately, I had the wrong read here. I misinterpreted what my opponent was doing, and that does cost us game 1. I do think that, if we had sort of put them into that awkward spot by being locked under their own Gravity Bind, we would have been in a lot better situation. They could have added back Serpent, gotten in for 500 damage each turn, which would have been kind of rough. But, ultimately, I think that we still would have been in an okay spot overall. But that's going to do it for game 1. Hopefully we can actually manage to do a little bit better in game 2. I do bring in Harpy's Feather Duster from the side for game 2. because, you know, with them having like gravity binds and stuff, I just want to clear that away. But we're going to set a crane, set a ring, pass back to them. They're going to go for MST on our ring, pass, and then bring out Legendary Ocean. Just attack in for 1700. And yeah, they're going to be able to do that. And they're going to just pass back to us. That's really good. Now we know that we can sort of do our plays without interruption. We're just going to go for a reasoning here. They're going to think about what to call. They're going to call 4, but we hit a Daedalus, so that's really nice. So we actually do manage to bring that out. We do have Legendary Ocean in hand, so we can go for a board wipe. But unfortunately, the board wipe here is like pretty bad. So we're just going to get in for a ton of damage. We could have potentially just saved the crane in hand here. But we've got Dark Hole in hand to clear away their stuff. And I feel like in a deck like this, you do want to get aggressive here. But yeah, this is really unfortunate to like Dark Hole or Raigeki. That'd be really bad for us. But our crane can't clear any of their monsters anyways with the Legendary Ocean up. So I think this is ultimately fine. Opponent's going to go for a Graceful, pitch a Legendary Ocean, a Forceful, bring out a giant red sea snake here. So that we'll be able to get over one of our cranes. So that'll attack in there. And then main 2, they're going to set 2, pass back to us. This is sort of telegraphing that they've got a way to deal with the Daedalus here. But you know, ultimately it's fine. We can potentially just activate Legendary Ocean here, and send everything to grave with the Daedalus. So potentially I should have just fired MST in end phase if we were going to go for that line. But you know, I've also got Dark Hole if they've got Mirror Force, so it's not bad. But yeah, they've got Ring anyways, so we can't necessarily go for the Legendary Ocean play now because they are going to use it in draw, which is correct. You want to use it as soon as possible before I can actually set up a Legendary Ocean of my own and get to popping. So I'm just going to switch this Sacred Crane of Defense, set this MST. Now we've got 2 MSTs set here, so we can clear both their back row cards there. They're going to bring out a Daedalus of their own, clear the board, and yeah, that'll pop everything. So they did get to pull off the Daedalus, which is kind of cool. We'll take the 2600 there, and they're going to fire Mirage as well. Oof, maybe I should have kept one of those MSTs in hand. They're going to get to draw 4 here. And luckily, we do have this Dark Hole to clear the Legendary Ocean, or not clear the Legendary Ocean, clear the Daedalus. But we'll be able to set the TT here, pass back to them. And they don't have an MST, so we'll be able to pitch 4 cards from their hand. We pick 1 for them to keep, and very happy to see that Pot of Greed and Reborn gone there. They're going to bring out a Grizzly. We've got this TT here. We need to use it because we only got 500 life points. Graceful Charity is a really good draw here. We need to dig into something we can potentially do here. If we draw any monster, we win the game pretty much. But unfortunately, we do not draw a monster. We're just going to pitch a Legendary Ocean and a Change of Heart. I figure if they actually manage to commit a monster to field, you know, we won't have time to actually use the Change of Heart on it because we'll be dead. So, you know, I just got to go for it. We go for Reasoning here to try and get a monster on field. They are going to call 7, and unfortunately, they do indeed hit the Daedalus. Oof, that would have been the end of the game there. We're going to set this Mirror Force, pass back to them. They'll have to pitch 4 cards here. We're going to pick 1 for them to keep, and oh, I'm very happy we hit those. But they're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw in a Witch, which is about the best thing that we could draw here. If they've got a way to clear the Witch, like a Torrential Tribute or something, then we get a search here. And they're going to think about this, but that's going to be okay. And we're going to attack in, and that is just a Snatch Steal. So, yeah, it will be the end of game 2 here. Very, very exciting end to the game there. But, yeah, I mean, that happens sometimes. And occasionally you wind up in these low resource situations. And normally this deck is actually pretty bad at top decking because it does have bricks like Legendary Ocean and Daedalus. But luckily we were able to sort of eke our way out of that. And also we did get to see Daedalus go off. I mean, it went off for our opponent, but still it was kind of cool to see. But we still have the Harpies in the deck here. Our opponent's going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Mirage, which is pretty nice. We're going to fire this Reasoning here. And they call 7 to dodge around Daedalus. We actually did bring in the Democ here. And we also brought in Call the Haunted. Because now that they're calling 7, you know, having the Democ in the deck seems pretty good. But we're going to go for Harpies, clearing their back row because we want to play around if it's MST. We don't want them to snipe this Mirage that we've got in hand. And MST is a pretty decent set there, potentially. So we're going to fire this Mirage. Unfortunately, they do have the MST in hand. So, you know, it happens. Maybe I should have saved the Harpies. But I feel like this is ultimately fine. They're going to go for 2 off a Pot of Greed, flip up a Mother Grizzly here, attack in to our Crane. Now, we could have potentially Mirror Forced that, just cleared away the Grizzly, which is kind of an annoying card to deal with. But honestly, I'm fine with them getting that off. We draw a Kaiku, we're just going to pass. We want our Mirror Force to be live, and then we want our Kaiku to get in to banish 2 from grave. So, that's our reasoning for just keeping the board state as is. We can search out something with Witch. We're going to search out Scientist here because that will deal with the Grizzly. We draw Pot of Greed, which is a great card here. We're going to draw 2 off that. And oh, those are good ones as well. We're going to go for these Scientists here. We're not going to use Prime in case they get like TT or something. We're then going to pay 1,000 here to bring out a Dark Bolter. We're not going to bring out a Sentry. If they had like Mirror Force or something, we got to eat through it eventually. So I figure that this is ultimately fine. I mean, we could also just MST their back row, but we got Mirror Force in case they want to go for an aggressive push after this. So they do indeed go for the Mirror Force there. Clear away our board, and we'll pass back to them. They're going to hit in for 14 with the Grizzly. We've got a way to clear it in hand with the Tribe, so I'm just fine letting them keep that. We draw Sangan. Unfortunately, our only 2 Sangan targets are out of deck now, so the Sangan's a bit less good. But we're just going to bring out this Tribe, pitch these Sangan, and pop that Grizzly. Attack it for 1,600 here. We're going to pass back to our opponent. They are going to summon out a giant red sea snake, which we'll be able to get over our Tribe. If we did not have this Mirror Force here, we'll be able to clear the giant red sea snake there. And they've got Red Geki to clear away our Tribe, but this allows us to get in perfectly with the Kaiku. And Change of Heart plus Daedalus is really, really good. If they set up Legendary Ocean, then we'll actually be able to get in with the Daedalus just by tributing one of their monsters. So this is a very, very good position to be in, I think. They've got a Graceful Charity here to dig deeper into their deck. They're going to pitch a Daedalus in a painful choice there. Fire a Feather Duster, getting rid of our MST. Go for a Reborn on their Daedalus, which is kind of rough. And then they're going to bring out a Witch of their own. They'll attack in to our, Kaiku there. Then attack in for 1,100 with the Witch. And then they're going to fire a Mirage and then set 1 pass back to us. They're going to draw 3 off the Mirage. And this is a very, very tricky sort of turn here. Because the idea here, the ideal thing to do would be to fire Change of Heart on their Daedalus, activate Legendary Ocean, tribute off their Daedalus for our Daedalus, and then potentially attack into the Witch. But if we attack into the Witch, they can search out Tribe, which is a bit awkward. The issue is if they've got MST, which they very likely do because they've got this Mirage set up, then the moment we activate a Legendary Ocean, they're just going to MST it because we got Daedalus on field, we got, potential things we can do. So I feel like, it's kind of an awkward spot, but if we do get to do this play, then I think it tells me that they don't have MST in the back row. So we're just going to fire Change here. And then we are going to think about it because, again, there's a lot to think about here, and we're going to fire the Legendary Ocean. That will indeed go through. They're not going to fire MST on it. So we are just going to tribute off the Daedalus for our Leviathan Dragon here. And, so because I have the read that they don't have MST, I feel like I just want to attack into the Witch here. This can be a bit punished if they do manage to keep the Tribe Infecting Virus in hand off the Mirage discards, or if they've just been holding an MST. But I feel like we don't really have a way to deal with Tribe after this anyways, so we kind of got to push through now. So yeah, I'm just going to go for it. This may be a little bit awkward, but yeah, it's what I'm doing. And if they do bring out Tribe, it's not the end of the game at least. We still do have a little bit more time. But yeah, technically they should have taken 1,800 there because our Leviathan Dragon is buffed, but it won't actually matter in the end. They do need to have the MST set, so, that was a misread on my part again, because I figured they would have fired it just on the Ocean, because they were in a very, very winning game state if they did that, but I think it's ultimately fine. They're going to bring out a Tribe, pitch a Legendary Ocean of their own, pop our Daedalus, get in for 1,800 here, and then they're just going to set 1, pass back to us. Call the Haunted is pretty good. They've gone through 2 MSTs, so I feel like Call the Haunted is relatively safe here. So we're going to set that call, pass back to them. They can just clear whatever we bring back. Oh, they got the other MST. No. Okay, that will be the end of the game. We're just going to call back this Witch, so we do get to search with the Witch. There's a ton of lag here, so, that's why the gameplay gets a little bit wonky there. But we search a Daedalus. Not really anything else to search. They're going to go for Forceful, shuffle that back anyways, so won't really matter there. And they do indeed have another monster, so that will be the end of the game. So pretty rough. We actually never got to pull off Daedalus on our side of the field, which is kind of funny, but we did see a Daedalus activation go off, which I do count as a victory for, showing off this deck. Now, as a note, the player who did the Daedalus activation in that situation actually lost the game. And I think that's sort of a sign that, like, Daedalus is not a win con. Like, CED is a win con, right? Daedalus is a board wipe. And board wipes are pretty good, but decks are already playing like Red Geki, Dark Hole, etc. And CED is a board wipe that's also a win con. So like it's a bit awkward. I think Daedalus is a cool sort of like strategy to go for and try and experiment with, but I think ultimately the strategy is just not good enough. It takes too much to actually go right to actually pull it off, and even if you do pull it off, you're not necessarily in a winning situation. So I don't really think this deck is that good, but it is very, very fun to see, and just, it's fun to like play around with. So I encourage people to test it out if they want some fun jank in Chaos format. But that's going to do it for my exploration of the deck here. Now we're nearing the end of Chaos format coverage. We've only got like 2 videos off the top of my head that I'm planning on making to sort of round out the coverage here. But if you have any ideas for what else you want to see before I leave Chaos format, then definitely let me know down in the comments below. Also, let me know your thoughts on this deck. And also, if you do want to, sort of see other videos like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel. I release a lot of retro gameplay content, just going through a variety of old formats, and it's always a blast to sort of show it off. So if you enjoy this sort of content, definitely subscribe. Also, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. And also, if you want to support me directly, I do also have a Patreon. If you join the Patreon, you'll be able to get shouted out in all these videos. So big shout outs to Porkchopcoon, GMYFS, Bren Donker, and Rincewind for supporting me directly. It really, really helps, and just encourages me to make more of these videos. Also, I've got higher tiers as well for, being able to suggest video ideas and also getting exclusive perks like, exclusive videos as well. No one's actually joined those tiers yet, but, you could be the first and get some exclusive videos and stuff. So if you want to support me directly, definitely head on over there. Links in the description. Also, if you want to play any of these formats for yourself, head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, where we play all these formats, and it's a great time there. But that's going to do it for this video. Until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.